Hey y'all, this is Steven from Healthy by Nature. Maybe you're here because you've heard the buzz about Zeolite Detox on TikTok, on the internet. Maybe you're here because you've just been feeling bad and you want a way to detox from environmental toxins, heavy metals, and you want to do it naturally. Either way, there's not great resources out there for expert information on the topics, especially with zeolite. So we were lucky enough to sit down with Mr. Micah Portney, who is one of the original pioneers of zeolite supplementation. He's got some of the top-rated products on Amazon, and he's been here for decades. So we thought if anyone knew the answers to these top 20 questions that we get all the time, it would be Micah Portney. So we sat down with him and asked him these questions. We've put them all together here. We also have them broken out into small Q&As on YouTube. But we put them together here so that you can share it, come back to it, and use it as a resource for as you decide on a detox method, decide on a product to detox with, and as you have questions about dosing, about how long you should take it, things like that. We want to be a resource for that. So, without further ado, Mr. Micah Portney.
Well, zeolite is a volcanic mineral. It's formed when lava and volcanic ash have a chemical reaction with the sodium and seawater. And it creates a cage-like structure that's almost like a beehive. And that has little pockets and segments, and it creates a negative charge, a natural negative charge, which actually in your body acts like a magnet to pull heavy metals and toxins out of the cells and then into the cage. What's important about that is that regular natural detoxifiers don't have a way of being carried out of the body, so they create side effects. And so a lot of people who even understand or talk about detox always say that there's side effects. However, with zeolite, when it pulls the toxins and heavy metals out of the cells, it actually traps them in the cage, so the body is not re-exposed to these toxins and heavy metals, and therefore there are less chances of having any side effects. Well, what happens is when a volcano erupts, the lava will come down the volcano, and when it hits seawater, it has a chemical reaction with the sodium and seawater, which creates a cage-like structure and a negative charge. And then over time, when the geology changes and landscapes change, you basically end up having zeolite under the ground, and it ends up being mined and then micronized into small particle sizes that can go through the body and through the blood and travel through and remove toxins and heavy metals and help balance the pH. Well, it's funny because zeolite was used before it was an actual supplement by the Russians in Chernobyl. They fed it to the townspeople and the children, as well as the animals such as cows, to try and remove the radiation from the Chernobyl nuclear accident. They were the first to use it with humans. What has been found since then, besides radioactivity, it also removes toxins and heavy metals, pesticides. There's a lot of different things that I won't get into specifics about, but it's not just a one-trick pony, which people should understand. Not only does it detoxify toxins and heavy metals, and it doesn't, there's less chances of side effects, but it's also an alkaline mineral. And what's important about that is our bodies are over 80% water. If you've ever seen a swimming pool with the pH out of balance, the pool turns green and all sorts of things start growing in it. So our bodies being over 80% water, and all of these systems that are very detailed in our bodies that are supposed to work together, what do you think happens when our pH is out of balance? Nothing works properly. Toxins and heavy metals, pH being out of balance, all can come across as symptoms of other diseases. And by removing these things, it's really the foundation of good health, because you're really getting an understanding of what your body's dealing with. If you remove the toxins and heavy metals which compromise your immune system, you balance the pH. By the way, the food we eat and stress on our bodies create acidity. Foreign cells thrive in acidity. So by balancing the pH, you are allowing our bodies to function the way they were designed in homeostasis, and then you'll be able to see if there's any real issues from that. Along with that is when people take zeolite, I always mention that if they're on a drug or something like that, to probably review every 30 days about the dosing, because if those symptoms mimicked some sort of disease and you're on drugs for it, you have to make sure that if that's self-correcting, the body is self-correcting and self-healing, that you're not taking a drug and dosing that could actually cause a problem by taking something that is no longer needed. The form should be clinoptolite, and I'll tell you why we pioneered with clinoptolite. There was two different forms of zeolite. By the way, zeolite's a family of minerals. There's over 100 different types of zeolite. It's a family name. So there are some specific types. There's something erionite, which is toxic to humans. And that's still a type of zeolite. But the form that we chose was clinoptolite, and here's why. There was multiple studies done at universities between mortonite and clinoptolite. Both were showing benefits for humans. However, the mortonite actually has a crystalline structure. And we believe that after taking it over long term, it would wear down the esophageal and stomach linings, and it might create issues later on. Clinoptolite is not crystalline, and so we used that form to specifically go with to make sure that it could be used in a long-term basis without negative side effects. Now, clinoptolite, I'll explain that there's different purities and things like that. I like to say it like this: if you have spring water and you have swamp water, both are still water, which would you rather drink? Same thing with clinoptolite zeolite. There are commercial uses for it, and there's very low purity levels of that as well. As a matter of fact, that's what that MLM got sued for by the distributors. They were only using a 50% purity. Ours is 94%. That is confirmed by a expert in zeolite. A geological university lab is what we use to confirm the purity of our product. So the clinoptolite we have in a powder, we do it in capsules, and then of course you've seen liquids as well. The liquids are very small amounts of zeolite. Our detox is a lot more than what those liquid products are in the market. Like I said before, that's a good convenience product, an introduction to zeolite, and kids seem to like that as well if it's flavored, and a good start for that. The capsules are formulated, it's zeolite, but it's formulated with different things for specific purposes, but that because there's other things formulated in it and because they're encapsulated, it ends up being more expensive to produce, so it ends up being a little more money, higher cost. The zeolite powder itself, or zeolite pure, is just the zeolite, and it's not formulated with anything else, and that is much more economical and cost effective at a pure per gram cost. So since we're the pioneers of zeolite supplementation, we came up with a policy 25 years ago to not make any mentions regarding children, pregnant women, nursing. So we basically stay with that policy just because of there's no real scientific studies. However, over the last 25 years, I will tell you, based on all the toxicology studies and everything that we've done and we've had done, because we're not toxicologists, we have labs do that are experts at what they do. Yes, adults can take it. We have people who have said that they've seen tremendous results using our products with children. Pets I've used with my pets personally, and we have a lot of people who use it with pets. I've used it with my cats. I've used it with my dogs and made cookies with my dogs, which they love, and we use it with our horses. So yeah, they've been using zeolite with animals for a very long time. A lot of the studies were done with animals. There's a scientific study with dogs out there. Actually, the reason why zeolite is, the clinoptolite zeolite is on the list of generally recognized as safe from the FDA is because they initially, the farmers, when the animals had diarrhea, they couldn't use drugs because the animals were going to go into the food chain. So they would die, dehydrate from diarrhea, and the farmers would lose all of their livestock and all of their money. Well, they started using many years ago zeolite in the feed, and it stopped the diarrhea. And because the farmers were using this, the government had to step in and confirm that it was safe because it was going to be in the food chain. And that's actually how we were able to use it as a dietary supplement, because we were able to show that it's already been in the food chain. It's used in food products. Zeolite stays in the body 6 to 8 hours. It goes out through your system through urine and feces. Dr. Piper actually has on his website 3 different levels of dosing. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because of how long it stays in the body has to do with that. And so if you take it once a day, it's a maintenance dose. If you take it twice a day, it's a detox dose. If you take it 3 times a day, he says it's for an acute health issue. Now, why would that be? Why does he say that for 3 times a day? It's because of foreign cells thriving in acidity, and the food we eat and stress on our bodies create acidity. But if you have zeolite in your body, you're taking it 3 times a day, essentially that's every 8 hours, is 24 hours, it's staying in your body, and it's much quicker in balancing the pH. And so for people with an acute health issue, it's helping balance that pH much more quickly, much quicker. We say to take zeolite for a minimum of 90 days. Everyone has different levels of toxicity and releases those toxins and heavy metals at different rates. Usually everybody for mercury is a slow go anyway, but so we say always to do a minimum of 90 days, sometimes 120 at a detox level before you're doing any kind of maintenance level. But whether it's doing a heavy metal baseline before and then after 90 days, or it's writing down all of the things that you're not feeling well or wanting to see changes with, and then after 90 days, basically comparing that list and evaluating how you feel at that time with those different issues. We do have Dr. Piper, who's an independent expert on zeolite supplementation. He has a website where he makes therapeutic dosing recommendations based on use with his patients over 20 years and the published scientific studies in the U.S. Library of Medicine. And that website is Zeolite, so Z-E-O-L-I-T-E, dosing, DOSING.com, zeolitedosing.com. You'll see there's a the zeolite powder directions, and then different of our product descriptions, like capsules with humic acid, capsules with calcium B12. So basically you just use a description of what the product is. That's the best way to go about it. And you can take zeolite, the body processes it like food, so you can take it with or without food, it doesn't matter. It also doesn't matter if you take it with supplements or without. There are not many known interactions with zeolite. As far as medications are concerned, you should probably talk to a pharmacist to double check, but usually it's only something like heavy metal based will be less effective because it might absorb it, but very limited amount of medications are heavy metal based. Well, purity has nothing to do with heavy metals or anything like that. There's a lot of confusion with people who say, oh, well, we'd like to know how pure a product is. And when I ask, well, what does that mean? They're like, oh, well, the heavy metals. One has nothing to do with the other. Heavy metals are not bioavailable in zeolite. If you're watching our video segments, you'll understand the science behind that. But the reality is it has to do with how much clinophthalate is in the product. So the purity level is the purity amount of clinophthalate in the the product itself. You'll see that because we have 94%, we're the pioneers of zeolite supplementation. These other competitors are coming on, into the marketplace, and they see we have 94%, which is proven by an independent university geological lab who are experts in zeolite. They actually do testing and confirm that what the purity level is. But these other companies will just put on their listings or on their advertising, 95%, so we're one more than ZeoHealth, 96%. The issue is they have no evidence or proof of that. So you really should be asking companies for their purity tests and lab tests that are independent, that you'll see that it came from somewhere else and not their company, but it's the amount of clinoptilite zeolite in the product. Well, there's a lot of different aspects of what makes a good zeolite product, but you should also understand that there's different purities and different types of zeolite. So let's just focus on clinoptilite. Clinoptilite is also used for commercial purposes. So there's mines out there with very low purity that are using it in cat litter, using it in water filtration, using it for oil spill cleanups. So they don't care about quality control. They don't care about anything that has to do with humans. However, a lot of these companies don't know how to source it properly, how to process it properly. So what they end up doing is they could go to a local mine and just throw it in a bottle and selling it. And if you find products that are really inexpensive, that's probably what they're doing. We have so again, there's some mines that have like 50% purity. Our mine has 94%, which we check with a geological lab in a university that specializes in zeolite. They're very knowledgeable, and they confirm 94%. The other 6%, in case you're wondering, because there's people out there going, what about the other 6%? They're inert volcanics. They're basically, I don't know what you would call dirt, quartz, that kind of stuff, things that are inert and not dangerous or effective in humans. There's no issues with them. So one of the things that we do is, because we mine specifically for human consumption, we have quality control checks at the mine. We make sure that mining specifically for human consumption, there's no diesel fuel spills. We check for mold. We do all kinds of testing. We do checks at the mine. We do checks after it's mined, before we process, and then we do checks after we process. So we process specifically for human consumption. It's a proprietary process that we use, but basically we do a process and make sure there's no bacteria, no mold, and we do food grade testing, which tests for all those things afterwards. It's a food screen. The particle size is also something that you should be interested in. So if you have a very large particle size, it will stay in the digestive tract. If you have a very small particle size, which I'll get into a little more in a second, it will go into the bloodstream, but it will also miss the digestive tract. So one of the things that we do in our company in ZeoHealth, or Zeolite Pure, we have a 0 to 40. And what that means, it doesn't tell you a lot. 0 is the lowest particle size. 40 is the largest, the biggest particle size. But it doesn't tell the story. Basically, 80% of our zeolite is less than 10 micron, which will go into the bloodstream. The smaller particles will cross the blood-brain barrier. And then 20% is larger particle size from 10 to 40, which we want to stay in the digestive tract. The reason why we do that is because we're the only company that focuses on a full body detox. If you only focus on the bloodstream, the digestive tract is a huge area where there are tons of toxins and heavy metals. And so what's going to happen? If you get it out of the bloodstream, it's just going to redeposit from the digestive tract. So we focus on the whole body at once on purpose to make sure that you're not going through that merry-go-round. there are some companies out there who are claiming nanoparticles. Now, a lot of these companies do these type of things just to jump on the recent bandwagon of what's hot. And so everyone's talking about nanoparticles. A nano-sized particle doesn't make sense in physics because it would be smaller than the heavy metal particle it was trying to pick up. So basically you would have like fleas on a dog or trying to move an elephant with a matchbox car. It doesn't make sense in physics. So nano-sized particles, these tiny, tiny particles that they're talking about when they say nano, this doesn't make sense in physics. So it's all marketing ploy. Well, the way that zeolite is actually designed by nature is it has a cage-like structure with a negative charge. So unlike other natural detoxifiers, which will basically pull the toxins and heavy metals out of the cell, the side effects are because the body doesn't know what to do with it. It reacts as if it was just poisoned, and so you have side effects. Some side effects have been told diarrhea, nausea, basically everybody's different, but those are some standards. With zeolite, because it has the cage structure, it pulls the toxins and heavy metals into the cage, and then the body's not re-exposed. Now, however, there's a lot of people out there who believe it's like a drug and will say, oh, well, I'll take less because I'm very sensitive to stuff. Well, this is the scenario I basically like to tell them. If we're at a rock concert, there was 50,000 people in the rock concert, and they all came out and there was one bus to take them where they needed to go. There would be absolute chaos. It would be completely inefficient, right? If you had 50,000 people and there was a fleet of buses coming one after the other, carrying them to where they would go, it would be organized and efficient. Same thing as with zeolite. If the zeolite's pulling toxins and heavy metals out and there's only a little bit there to carry them out of the body, and there's not enough cages to take them out, then your body's going to be the same as it would without anything being carrying it out of the body. It might react and you might get side effects. What we found is the more that people take, the less likely you're to get side effects. Our bodies are constantly exposed and bombarded by toxins and heavy metals consistently. There's chemicals in carpets, there's chemicals in new cars, there's chemicals in everything, a ton of different things that are man-made and naturally occurring. So while the body can detoxify itself to a certain level, the overburden that's happened with the amount that we're exposed to is tremendous. They're stored, toxins and heavy metals are stored in our fat cells, which the body has a lot of trouble removing. Zeolite itself, being a volcanic mineral with a negative charge, actually will use that charge to pull the toxins and heavy metals out of the cells like a magnet, and then trap it in the cage structure to remove it from the body through defecating and urinating. It just flows out. The zeolite stays in the body 6 to 8 hours, and then it's just gone. Well, let's start with bentonite. Bentonite is the other natural mineral that has a negative charge, but it's different than zeolite because it does not have that cage structure. It doesn't work very specifically to the heavy metals that you're trying to get rid of in your body. Zeolite's very specific in what it does. It's kind of a cross between zeolite and charcoal. Charcoal is almost like a sponge. I never recommend people use charcoal on a long-term basis, only in emergency situations like in a hospital setting when someone ingests a poison or something like that, because it acts like a sponge and it takes up everything, the good, the bad, it doesn't matter. It takes up everything. It's not something very healthy to take. Diatomaceous earth is a silica base product, so is zeolite, but they're prehistoric little microscopic animals, and they are more used for, it's a natural anti-parasite parasitic. So for parasites, anything like that, I'll actually take it myself, but it's not much for removing toxins and heavy metals. It's much better used for parasites. So zeolite is very unique. There's nothing like it on the planet. Because of the cage structure, the negative charge, removing toxins and heavy metals, and in addition, it's an alkaline mineral which helps balance the pH in the body. So it's very unique. There's nothing really like it. Everyone shows toxicity differently. Okay, so if someone has high level of toxins and heavy metals, their body could respond by gaining weight and not having their systems efficient. Same thing with the pH in the body. Zeolite's an alkaline mineral, so it helps balance the pH. So if your systems are out of whack and you've gained weight because your systems are not functioning the way they're supposed to and as efficient as they're supposed to, it's very possible. Everyone sees results of detoxifying differently. But again, it really depends on why why you're having the specific issue you're having. If it's based on your pH being out of balance or toxins and heavy metals, then it's possible. But we don't make specific claims like that because everybody's different. Zeolite has been shown to have some sort of effect on parasites. Me personally, I use Diatomaceous earth for that, for a natural anti-parasitic. It helps a little bit. Again, if you have your body pH balanced, it's a situation that things really can't survive that aren't supposed to be in there. So with zeolite removing the toxins and heavy metals in your body, it boosts your immune system, and then by balancing the pH, it creates a body that an environment that the things can't really survive that shouldn't be there. Mold, it does have some sort of anti-mold effect. We don't know exactly to what extent, but we have had people who have had mold issues tell us that they've found relief with it. What really liquid zeolite is just a suspension of the micronized powder. And there's different amounts of that powder in these liquids. They're very tiny amounts in the liquids, which is why they're not as effective as the micronized powder, because that's actually real zeolite. That's what you're getting is zeolite. They're taking tiny amounts of the micronized powder, putting it in water or humic acid or other things to call it a liquid zeolite. And the reality is it's just a suspension. So in order for people to understand, and a lot of these are multi-level marketing, which means every distributor needs to get paid, so they are very expensive, and so people are like, well, if they're a lot of money, they must really work, but that is not the case with MLM. So really what it came down to was we decided, because people were so brainwashed with the misinformation regarding liquid, we came out with something called Detox, which is a suspension with basically about 50 times more zeolite in the suspension, and it's flavored. And because we're a manufacturer, not a multi-level marketing company, it's much less expensive to manufacture. So the price is probably 25% of what the liquid companies are selling their products for. So it also is flavored. Kids enjoy it. A lot of people have said that they give it to their kids. It's easier to give to them. We use that as either for people to be able to do that, or a convenience product, or an introduction to zeolite. And so that's really what that product was created for, but we use it to leverage people to see, well, like the results that you're getting from that product, moving over to a more economical micronized powder, you're going to be able to control how much zeolite you're taking, and you're going to be able to get a lot more for your money. Well, humic acid is, we use humic acid in one of our products. As a matter of fact, Dr. Howard Piper used to use humic acid as an immune booster with his patients, and he ended up writing a book about zeolite supplementation. He was very he was an advocate about using it with zeolite. Why? Because zeolite removes toxins and heavy metals, and it's somewhat of an immune booster from that. Humic acid is an extreme immune booster and then has somewhat of detoxification. So together, it's a very they complement each other, and it's a very good combination for boosting your immune system and detoxifying your body. It means that there's some very creative marketing people out there is what that means. Basically, they're saying that when they micronize it, that activates it. Basically, when the type of micronization that we do creates a broad surface structure, so that broader surface allows more of that negative charge to act as a magnet to pull it, and that's what they're talking about activated. It is a marketing jargon. It's a ridiculous thing for people to use, but everybody's trying to use terminology to make people buy their products. And the reality is, it's just that, it's marketing jargon. No, it does not remove nutrients from the body or interfere with it. As a matter of fact, there's been animal studies done that showed where they gave one group zeolite with their feed and the other group just the feed. And actually the ones that took it with food had leaner muscle mass, more weight gain, which was the lean muscle mass. They were much more healthy specimens. So while zeolite, the body will treat zeolite like food, taking it with food has a benefit. Taking it without food does not have any disadvantages. The body treats it like food and processes it like food. It does not pull any nutrients out of the body. Zeolite actually in nature is preloaded with elemental calcium and potassium, and it works by a cation exchange, which is a swap basically based on atomic weight to pull out. So the calcium and potassium will swap out for something with a heavier atomic weight, like a heavy metal. So that's what it does, but it's not going to swap it out for something that is similar. So if you have calcium or potassium in your body, it's not going to swap calcium and potassium for calcium and potassium. It's going to want to swap only for a heavy metal. If I have a hamburger, I'm not swapping for another hamburger, but if you have filet mignon, I might swap it out. It's the same thing with the zeolite. It only goes and will swap that out for an affinity, what it has an affinity for, which is heavy metals. Zeolite detoxifies the whole body. It goes through your bloodstream and removes toxins and heavy metals. So the liver being part of the body, it's not just specifically one part of the body. It detoxifies the whole body. Yes and no. Absolutely, zeolite contains heavy metals. Pretty scary, isn't it? It sounds very scary. However, it's not. Zeolite is a compound called the sodium aluminosilicate. And when that compound is formed, when the volcanic ash and lava has a chemical reaction with the sodium and seawater, it creates a bond and a structure that it's very strong. It's almost like similar to water would be a good way to explain it. Our bodies do not break down water to the H2O, right? It remains the compound water and we use it as water. So same thing with zeolite. Zeolite, when it's formed, okay, any heavy metals or elements like that are bound into the walls of the structure and they're not released. The only things that can destroy that compound, which is very strong, is pure hydrochloric acid, which we do not have in our stomach, otherwise it would burn a hole right through it, and about 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit, which would be similar to volcanic heat. Don't quote me on that exact number, I'm just giving an average reference point. But you understand what I'm trying to get across. It's a very strong compound. It doesn't break down. These things are not released. As a matter of fact, opposite of that, they remove toxins and heavy metals with the negative charge and trapping it in the cage structure. So this structure is very important how it's formed. It's very strong. Any heavy metals, which we've proven both in lab tests and scientific tests with animals, is that the heavy metals, any heavy metals in the zeolite are not bioavailable. World-renowned expert in that subject matter is the one who did that study. The government uses them, the states use them. He's a world-renowned expert in the bioavailability of heavy metals, and we are the only company in the world that has done these studies and proven that.